All right, I am so excited to be talking with Robyn from 7th and Gray. And yeah, I'm excited to just talk about design stuff because I've been following your work for a while and I just love your work. I feel like your style is so recognizable too. um,
Oh, thank you.
yeah, so I'm excited to talk to you. So first, what is your favorite place to find design inspiration? Whether it's a website or just something random.
So, probably Type Wolf, actually.
I love that
I
website.
yes, I don't. I'm like, I am an introvert to the heart, and so and I have three kids, and one of them has special needs, so I don't get out as much as I like. But then again, I'm not like the one to just go out and go to a lot of places. Like going to a museum or something like that is not
Mhm.
just something I can do on a whim. So Um, I for as far as like design related, that is my favorite place to get inspiration.
Mhm.
There's just always something good there, and you don't have to you know, scroll or go to the next page forever. There's just always something good there.
Yeah, yeah, I love that website. I check it at least once a week.
Yeah,
It's always good.
it
Um,
is.
Yeah. Okay. So I would love to hear more about how you started your business and kind of how you got started as a designer too, because I know you've had kind of an interesting journey into starting your design business because you were in the military. So,
hmm
um, yeah, how did you figure out that you wanted to be a designer and like how did that whole transition go? Because I assume that would be an interesting jump.
Oh, yes. So it's so weird because I feel like my design journey kind of started before when I was younger. So when I was about 5 years old, I remember I was very, very creative and artistic, like just very much so. I would take pictures out of like I had a book. I remember I had this Disney book and it was like purple and like blue, and it was like I think it was what's her name? Belle from Beauty and the Beast. And I would
Hmm.
take the pictures out there and I would redraw them. I was really, really good at illustration. And so um, it just wasn't encouraged. Like I remember when I was younger, I had someone used to babysit me and they told me that I wasn't a artist or I wasn't, you know, doing it the right way because I was illustrating, because I was redrawing something. And I think that I still remember that now. I took that on. Just wasn't encouraged, I think, because we were poor. And so, it's more so encouraged to do something more traditional and more stable.
Hmm.
So, in my mind, I knew I was good at that, but I didn't think it was ever a career option. So it was something I never explored, right? So from the age of 8 years old and on, I had wanted to be in the military. There was just nothing you could tell me otherwise, right? So despite any setbacks in my life, that was something that I was going to do. And so I joined the military, enlisted when I was 18, 19. And then like a year, not even a year later, I was deployed in Iraq. And this
Wow.
is when the war started. And it was a very interesting growing time. And it definitely changed me and it made me grow up and mature. And after that, I lived in Germany for a couple of years and I ended up moving back to the States. And I did some time over in Northeast um, in Washington State. And then
Mhm.
after that, I had just, decided that not that I didn't like the military or anything like that. I just felt like this wasn't supposed to be the rest of my life as far as because I wanted children. And I just,
Mhm.
being that lifestyle, it's very, very hard as a woman to, you know, be the mom that I wanted to be. Rather, I shouldn't say some women do great, just wasn't the mom that I wanted to be. And I had some different personal issues that happened. And so I decided that um, I was going to get out. So I got out and then I was just like, okay, what am I going to do? I
Yeah.
started college before and I never found that one thing that I was like super passionate about. I think I had like two or three majors by then. One of them was criminal justice, one of them was business, which I still like those things. And I got out and I was like, okay, well, I need to finish my degree, And so I literally spoke to a college counselor, and he was asking me questions and things like that. And then he was like, I think this would be a good fit for you. I don't know if it was because of the things I was saying, or, maybe he asked me what I liked or something, but that creativity never left. And I always felt like it was stifled in the military. I remember doing like all kinds of creative things while I was in, and people would see me doing them. I remember, and they would be like, what are you doing? Because the military is all about teamwork and conformity, right? So I remember one time, actually, it's so funny. Or one time I was eating lunch, and I had finished eating lunch, and I was picking up knitting. I just wanted to do something like creative or whatever. I was knitting, and then literally the people's faces when they came through, they were like, what the heck are you doing? You knit or whatever? And I just thought it was so funny thinking back, like how out of place that was. But anyway, he was like, yeah, graphic design sounds like something you do. And I never really understood that was, but come to find out, I had always done it. I had, done in middle school. I don't know if you did this too, but or even in grade school, you'd make like I feel like we, at least my age, I'm 36 now. When I was in middle school and like high school, we would get markers, and we would like draw these really elaborate letters and like give them to our friends, or slide them under a desk and stuff like that. And I was so extra with mine. Like, girl, people would ask me to make them for them, and just stuff like that. I had always done like really creative things, and I never knew that this could be like a career besides like being an artist or whatever. And that wasn't encouraged. So I decided to go. I was like, okay, what do I have to lose? Nothing else is really piquing my interest. So I went and I did the graphic design program. I got my BFA in graphic design and media arts. So, and at that time, when I had graduated, I was pregnant. And so I was like, well, one of my whole points of getting out of the military was to, be a mom. I really had always wanted to, be there for my kiddos and stuff like that. And I wasn't sure how I was going to do that. And I didn't really know a lot about the industry, actually. I find that a lot of designers too, they basically, you get out of school and then you're just trying to figure out everything out, right? I feel like there's no course that kind of explains the industry. Like, you learn design, right? You learn that like the back of your hand, but you don't learn about the business of design at all. I feel like a lot of
there's a very
programs lack
big
that.
gap.
Yes. You don't know about the different options, There's always, oh, you're going to go work at an agency or work in-house. There's never, and then they don't even elaborate on that, right? And depending on what program you're in, but there's like no courses for, freelancing or anything like that. So at that point, and even before that, I knew that I needed to start my own business. And just like with that knitting thing that I was doing, I had attempted to do that while I was in the military, and I was so busy and I just couldn't make it work. And it was another creative avenue that I, was going to start the business with. And when I was out now, I had, and finished school, I had every opportunity I had time to kind of do that. Well, not really. Was having a baby, but I made it work, And so this was about, how old is my son? He is 7 or 8. So this is almost 8 years ago. Boy. Okay. So, yeah, I started, 7th in Gray. It was called something else. It was called the Aesthetic House originally. And then a lot of people started to have the name Aesthetic. And I was like, I can't do that. People would try to find my site and they would find someone else's site because they typed their own name. So I changed that. But anyway, I've been doing this for nearly 8 years now. And it has grown so much, and to be so much more than I thought it could be. And I've had a lot of stumbling blocks on the way, times where I just felt like I shouldn't be doing this, or, I was really depressed or whatever it may be. But I'm so glad I stuck with it.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's such like an interesting like turn of events and everything. And yeah, so first, thanks for your service. And like,
Oh, hey.
it's I my younger one of my younger brothers right now, um he just, I don't know, over the past year, he's been trying to join the military. He's kind of gone back and forth between Air
Mhm.
Force and Army, and I don't know. He's kind of gone back and forth with everything. But yeah, it's like I don't know, it's a really interesting, like, I don't know, career path. I feel like there's just a lot of like uncertainty, especially if you think about, you're in the military, and then kind of what do you
Mm.
do afterwards?
Yeah,
I've already
I
wondered like what he'll do after all of that. Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely different than anything I've ever, experienced in the civilian world. And some of the way I think about stuff, even time, I think of time in military time. I think of things in like military ways sometimes, and I have to like try to like tell myself, no, that's not how they, it's very, very funny though. But I definitely would do it again if I could, but I I feel like I'm happy to be out, but like I would never take away from the experience. I loved it. And yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, that's awesome. And so whenever like you were first starting your business, like you said, I mean, that was your plan, which I think is amazing that you knew that you wanted to run your own business, because I feel like lots of people end up, I don't
Falling
know,
into it.
yeah, like it's not really what they planned on doing, and then it just kind of happens. But yeah, so since like that was your plan, um, what were your feelings like just getting into it? Like, were you scared about what was going to happen, if it was going to work, if it wasn't going to work? Um, yeah, what were your fears in the beginning?
I would say there were two. There was a lot of the overarching feeling I had though was uncertainty. So in
Mm-hmm.
that, first is that I didn't know what I was going to do in design. Like, I think initially I wanted to do like print design, and I was
Mm-hmm.
trying to navigate that. And I just don't feel like my degree program had prepared me enough for print design. So I just didn't know how to navigate that. And and as I went along and I learned more, I was like, oh, I don't like doing that. So, and then the second one is like, my husband was like so supportive. He's always been like super supportive, like bless his heart. That's something we say down here in Texas, but definitely bless his heart because he um has always been super supportive. He did not understand anything about the business, still is like looking at me crazy sometimes. But uh he's gotten better though. I might ask him to critique things here and there, so just to give me like a general idea of something, impartial idea of how something looks. But yeah, just I had a really good support system in him, and even though I things were uncertain at first, um, I had the room to figure it out. I had
Mm-hmm.
the support system to figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of how I felt too. My husband, I just asked him for his input on something this morning, and he's kind of the same. And whenever I ask him for advice, he's like, "Oh, because I know everything about design now." Um, but yeah, he's kind of the same. He's a good test subject to get advice from someone who is, uh, I don't know,
Yeah, just like
not,
detached from it, because
yeah.
you get a concept and you're like, oh my God, this I've done the research, I know this is it, and then I work on it for so long, and then I start to like doubt myself. I'm like, oh my gosh, and I'm like, babe, come here. Can you just please look at this and tell me your initial thoughts, And so he's very, very honest. Sometimes it's like,
Too
yeah,
honest.
yeah, too honest. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
okay, I feel you.
Yeah, that's so funny. Yeah, and so like, did you, as far as, I mean, did you struggle with like seeing other designers? Did you follow a lot of other designers whenever you were first getting started to like,
I think when I
compare
first
yourself
started,
or?
there's always been that level of comparison, and I think it's just
Mhm.
changed over the years. At first, it was self-doubt, um, and now it's more so I'm gonna learn from what they're doing. I'm gonna either do it better or, I'm gonna appreciate what they do. Like I have like a lot of the, design friends and stuff like that. And I look at what they do and I'm like, wow, that's amazing. What are they doing right? And then I'm also like, well, they're doing that right, but that might not be for me. I think in the beginning, there was a lot of pressure on myself to succeed. And through that, I just had that like imposter syndrome because I didn't know what I was doing. Like I literally did not know what I was doing. Like a lot of us. And I would look at someone else and be like, oh my gosh, they're doing this. Why am I not doing that? And I
Mhm.
think just over time I learned that I don't necessarily have to. Of course, there are things that you should do, like you should have a contract, right? But everybody's career looks different. And, you know, I can't just put up, I can't just expect my career to look like their career, and that's okay. Um, and we have to just learn to admire other designers and not compare ourselves automatically. So
Mhm.
it took me
Yeah.
a while to get there. Especially, I feel like I didn't know the business side of it as much as I do now.
Mhm. Yeah, and I feel like at some point everybody has to kind of go through that
Hmm.
comparison stage, because at some point you do have to kind of try out a couple of other things and figure out like
Hmm.
what really works for you and what doesn't. But it is totally true that especially because I feel like within small business and like entrepreneurship, most people are building their business around their specific lifestyle. Like
Hmm.
you started your business because you wanted to be a mom and be able to stay at home and everything. And so, like, the way that you build your business to have that lifestyle that you want is going to be different for somebody who has a different lifestyle. So, um, yeah, you kind of have to remember that everybody runs their business differently for different reasons, I guess. And those reasons
Yeah.
might not necessarily align with like what you actually want. um,
Right. And you have to take from everything you learn from other designers, whether it be like the littlest thing. Like, I have a, a design friend and we, Zoom here and there on a virtual design friend, I guess you would call it that, Shanna from Branch.
mm-hmm.
She has the most like beautiful presentations and um, things like that. And even like, you know, designers who are out there giving advice to other designers like yourself, we have to learn to admire what they do and take from that and not, like expect ourselves to be just like them or even, what's the word I'm looking for? We don't need to resemble them. You can just take what you can and learn from that experience and make it fit your life.
Yeah, yeah, I feel like an example just popped into my head is like I sometimes I talk to designers and like as far as working with clients and like how they work with clients and stuff, and some designers really like to do like long strategy calls with their clients and stuff.
Hmm.
And part of me, I hear them talk about that and how they're like, doing a strategy call rather than having the client fill out a really long questionnaire. Like, that's the way to go so that you can talk to the client through it. You don't want to give them a ton of homework. But, and so I feel pressured that I should be doing that. But for me, I'm working with clients who are across the world. My time
Right.
zone is usually very different. So it's a lot harder for me to schedule really long calls with people.
Hmm.
All of my calls end up having to be in the evening, and like that just doesn't fit that doesn't fit my lifestyle that I want. I don't want to be on really long calls all the time with clients. I want to try to avoid calls as much as possible. So that's kind of like one of those things that I hear other designers like talk about how they do something, and I feel pressured that I need to do it that way too, but really that's not what's going to work for
Yeah,
me.
because it's not going to work for you. And that's so awesome. Like, that's exactly what I'm talking about. That's like a perfect example.
Yeah.
Ooh, share that on your Instagram. I think a lot of people would, a lot of designers would benefit from that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll make a note so I can remember, because yeah, that's a good example. Okay, so yeah, so what are some things that you wish that you would have known whenever you first started? Or like, are there any big mistakes that you
Yes.
made? Everybody
I'm
does.
like, yes. Project management, huge,
Mm,
huge.
mm,
Um, Project management, providing exceptional customer service. Um, and I was going to say process, but that's the same as project management. Those are my two big ones that I can think of now. I've always had, the contract thing. That's never so. I'm lucky, I feel like, because I know younger designers that I've like not necessarily mentored, but had conversations with, and
mm-hmm.
they're like, they don't have a contract. I'm like, that's the one thing you have to have. Like, if you don't do
Yeah.
anything else, just have that.
Mm-hmm.
That's, but every project management and customer service are very tricky. Um, Project management in particular is so huge, and I still have times where I struggle. Like I was telling you, I was up last night. Things just, every client can be different, and things can happen, and things do get off track, and you just got to get back on track. But having a
Mm-hmm.
really solid, specific process, it's so important. Um, it's going to save you a ton of time, make your clients feel better, elevate your services. So yeah, and then customer service, providing really, really good customer service, even when the client is wrong. Um, it's not to say you let them like abuse you or whatever. Like, I've had one client like really not be very nice, and so I still try to be as professional as possible, because
Mm-hmm.
that person could go and slander you or whatever. So
Yeah.
yeah, those are my two big ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I feel like those are the things that you kind of just learn as
Hmm.
you go. I mean, there's
And
not like a. Mm-hmm.
it changes as your life changes. People, they start their career as a freelancer or an agency boutique owner. um, they may not have a child, for instance, and then as their life changes, their process almost has to change in a way, because
Mm-hmm.
you have to have it to fit your lifestyle. And so um, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's totally great. And I wanted to talk about growing a team, because I know that you've been
Yes.
kind of like expanding and growing a team, which that's something that scares me personally, and maybe that's one of those other things where it's like I feel pressure because I
Hmm.
see other people growing a team and I'm like, oh, do I really want to do that? But yeah, how has that been for you? Like what have been your
so
goals for like
my
expanding?
So I came to a point in which I was like, okay, in order to sustain this business, I'm going to have to hire someone, or I'm going to have to take
Mm-hmm.
less clients. And so the clients kept coming, and they kept being like good projects. And I'm like, and I increased my prices too. So I did all the things, right? And I'm like, man, like I didn't want to turn them away. And it wasn't because I felt like, oh, I need to take on these clients. I really wanted to work with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to stop and like write down what my goals were. I was like, you know what, I want to continue to take on clients. And I do think there's a point where you have to be like, no, you can't rely only on clients for income, right? But I had to explore where I wanted to take Seventh and Gray. Like, did I want to be this agency, or did I just want to work by myself and, just increase my prices to the point where I'm only working just a couple of people a year, or like really, really, really have a specific niche term where I'm getting less people. And as I did that, it was like me checking off the box, like, no, I don't, that's not how I see myself. That's not how I see myself. And I wrote down, what I wanted, and what really helped me, design biz mastery. That really helped me, like, really decide, dream. It allowed me to dream bigger and be okay to dream bigger. Like, that was so helpful. And I know you've taken Morgan's course. And so it was invaluable, like, for real.
Yeah.
So from that point forward, I went, I have been steadily growing my team. So the first person I hired was someone who was better at doing what I was not as good at doing. And that's some advice I'd heard years ago. The first person you hire the things you don't like to do, or the things you're bad at, And so I struggle with project management because my life is hectic with the kids, and my husband, for at a time, he was working a lot, and he would travel and stuff like that, and I had always wanted to have someone help me with that. And so I hired someone, and then the second person I hired was a social media manager, and that's something I've always struggled with as well, just being consistent on social media. Uh, that has been interesting. So one thing, if I could tell designers, like, I know you did ask me, like, give your advice, but like, I just have a process written down for your people. That process is going to change. But you don't want them coming into your business and not knowing what to do. And then you're just inventing it right away. And then you're wasting time and money doing that. So as much as you can, I mean, things will change, have it written down in an SOP. So Jenna, my project manager, one of the first things we worked on, like, I had a general, like, process of what I wanted her to do, but she really helped me hone in on, because that's what she specializes in, those types of things. So she really helped me hone in on our SOP, and she's so good at, like, just getting me to focus. So we talked about basically, what Seventh and Gray could look like, and what we should do as far as our hiring process. That's something too, having a hiring process for your people. You need to have, like, certain type of contracts, and how you're going to pay these people, how that fits into you and your fees and everything. Like, those are things that you probably need to, like, try to write down, but then, I'm all for winging it too. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes things aren't perfectly the way that we want them to be. And you will learn as you go on. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I love that, like, I feel like a lot of, especially designers, if they think of, oh, I need to have a team, you kind of just assume that means hiring, like, a junior designer. But there are so many other things that you can get help on that don't include that. And like you said, focusing on the things that you really don't enjoy doing or or you don't feel as confident in, like, that's okay. And I know in design biz mastery, something that Morgan talks about a lot too is, especially as, like, a mom, maybe it's not hiring someone to help with your business necessarily. Maybe it's just hiring a nanny to come in, or someone to come clean your house or something. Like, there are so many other things that you can.
My thing has been eating, or this sounds bad, but like DoorDash. I've hired a chef now. So that's been our kind of thing. My kids are luckily in school now. So I mean, during the, when the Rona started, so it was a little it was a madhouse. But
Yeah.
my kids are back in school now, and so I'm lucky, in that respect, that I definitely would hire someone to help with the kids if they were a little bit smaller. So yes,
Hmm.
I remember that um, lesson video in
Hmm.
DBM, and it was very refreshing, because you feel bad as a mom, like, oh, the whole point of me, some moms is, I want to stand for my kids. Like, you feel bad to even hire someone to help, or have them at a drop-in daycare place or something like that.
Yeah.
But that's totally part of running a business. Sometimes you just can't.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, yeah. And so, as far as hiring the team now, so like you're still doing all of the design
Yes,
work, then you're just having
yes,
people help with other things.
yes. We're in the process of we're putting our stuff together to hire a designer.
Hmm.
So we basically, we have Jenna, and then we have my social media manager, and then we just brought on a copywriter. And
Oh, awesome.
yeah, because clients really don't understand the importance of copywriting.
Yeah.
And then I even I wrote like a guide to copywriting to show them how to do it. And I made a little, like a template, a Google Doc template, which they can paste their stuff in, and like telling them what to paste. They look at that and they're like, dun, 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 and so, or they, do the bare minimum. And so
Hmm.
I was like, oh my God, they need to understand how important, their content is. It's just as, if not more important than the design. And so
Hmm.
that was why I wanted my clients to have an option of, they can write their own copywriting using our guide, or they can, we have a copywriter for them. And so
Hmm.
that was something I always wanted to do, those two things. And I'm like, yay, we got it going. So I'm thinking maybe I'm going to turn that into a course, but we'll see how that
Hmm.
goes. I do not have design right now, but yeah. So we do want to hire designers, but we are very cautious about that, because I feel like that's one of the harder things to hire,
Hmm.
because um, I feel like you can go about that two different ways. One way is, you hire someone and you train them in your style and your processes, and they eventually catch on. Or you can hire someone who already has your style, your aesthetic, and has a ton of experience. And I feel like it just, whatever is going to fit your goals, and how your studio works, that those are kind of, to me, the two types of, I guess, designers you would hire. And of
Hmm.
course, their experience needs to align with what you do, obviously. But I talked with a friend about that recently, and we talked about hiring designers, and she had expressed, she's a designer as well, and she had said that, well, it has benefited me to hire someone who is a junior designer, because you're giving them the benefit of learning under you, and
Hmm.
they will learn your process. It's harder to train someone to unlearn, I guess, someone else's, and to get them to do things the way that you want them to do them, um, and still allow them to have creative freedom. It's much easier to do it the
Hmm.
other way. And I was like,
Yeah,
so
that makes
I don't
sense.
think there's a right or wrong way. I just feel like those are, that's something to consider.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I do think that it is like, of all the things that you can hire out, it feels like it's the hardest. And just because you're giving away,
Hmm.
the part of the job that you really love. So yeah, I don't know about you, but like whenever I was in school, I feel like if there would be group projects or something, I hated group projects because
Me too.
I'm just like so selfish about designing stuff, I guess. And like, I just want to, I don't know, it would just bother me to have anybody else work on stuff. I just wanted to do it all myself,
Oh
and
yes,
yeah. And I
I
don't know, I
remember.
feel like
Mhm.
some people are very good at working collaboratively. And I've started working with a junior designer for a few projects this year. And yeah, it's been interesting for me just to try and like,
Right.
yeah, it's definitely, I've had a good experience with it, especially since I feel like sometimes whenever it's just you who's working on a project, like we were saying, like asking your husband to look at something because you don't have anybody else to ask. It's just you, and you like stare at something
Right.
for so long that it's
Oh
like
my gosh, yeah.
you don't even know what you're looking at anymore. So
I
that's
know
been
you.
really great to have her that I can like ask her opinion. And although she is a junior designer, like her opinion helps a lot of
Yes,
the
it
time
does. Because
to have another set of eyes on it.
yeah, you get in a like, oh, I forgot what it's called. Not a rabbit hole, but a tunnel vision.
Yeah.
Um, Definitely tunnel vision with that. I remember you talking about design school. I remember we had a group project in college, and I like took over because I was like so like I just wanted control over it. I didn't want it to look a certain way, you know. So I feel you on that. That is definitely, and I think me and my like, I'm an INJF, so I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
you've done Myers-Briggs and all that. Um, it just fits along with my personality type working. Kind of, if I'm working in a team, I still want to be able to have that creative freedom. And so I learning how to be managed and be like that is in a design business is very interesting. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So is there something that you've done with your business? I know, I mean, with, you know, obviously hiring help and figuring out a process and contracts and stuff, but is there something that you've done in your business that you feel like has made the biggest impact for you, or like just been super helpful, or something that you're really proud of that you've done?
yeah, something that is super helpful. I think something that I've done, that's a good one. So something that I feel like that changed my business. This really changed my business and streamlined my process. Um, I like as far as design presentation. So I took a course maybe 2 years ago or so. Um, it was by Brianna from Rowan Made.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Her and I know some designers aren't fans of the one concept method, but that has changed my business so much. Like
Mm-hmm.
that was a first like real big turning point. Um, I had
So
taken a class.
were you not doing one concept
No,
before
no, no,
that?
no, no. Like she just, and she like I like me has never like worked in-house or directly at an agency. I've contracted for different agencies, but um the way she explained it, the way she explained the one concept method just really changed the way that I designed, and it made my process way more streamlined and easier. And now I don't get as many like revision requests or whatever. And if they are revision requests, they aren't like complete, they're never complete, like, oh, this is like bad or whatever. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's not completely rejected. And I just and it's not just the one concept method, it's the way that presenting a whole presentation. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I it's one of those things they don't teach you in design school, how to like
Yeah.
present directly to a client, and clients can't see what you see, and you almost have to make them see what you see.
Mm-hmm.
And almost you have to, in a way, one word she used was selling it to them in a way that they can understand it. And so once I did that, it changed my business. And so
Mm-hmm.
it saved me a ton of time. And you can still do that without using the one concept method. But for me, I work so hard on one concept and it almost like drains me, you know, and I give it just the best I can. And I like to present them one at a time. Now, if a client's like, they're always like this, at least my clients, they like the concept that I present, and maybe there would be tweaks. And so that's
Mm-hmm.
fine. I just rarely ever have a client completely not like something. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not about liking it. I always tell them that, what is your target audience? Do you feel like this aligns with your target audience?
Yeah.
Um, that was another turning point too. Yes. So, strategy. We're in the process of updating our site right now. Isn't everybody always in that process as a designer? I feel like
Forever.
that's like a
Yeah.
never ending freaking process. So yeah, um, I really am big about strategy, like really big about that, because when I first started as a designer, freelancing or whatever, I didn't have a concept of what that meant and how important it was. It was more so, okay, I know what good design is. I'm going to give
Mm-hmm.
that to the client. They figure out the strategy thing. They can tell me, they tell me about, I always had that questionnaire where they would, tell me about their target audience, but I didn't place as much emphasis on it as I wished I would have in the beginning, right? Um, because you have it gives you and the client direction for what you're doing. And so that has been a huge thing with Seventh and Gray, is like um design strategy. Like if
Mm-hmm.
a client comes to us and it's their first year or 2 or 3 in business, and there are certain things when I do my design consultation, I can kind of feel out if they need a strategy. There are some clients that just don't need one, and they put all of that information in their questionnaire, but then there are some clients that really need one. And
Mm-hmm.
so we do that process first before anything. And mine are pretty elaborate, I think. And I'm kind of proud of that. You said something that we were proud of. I'm really, really proud of the time I take with strategy and things like that. Because strategy document is rather long. So, and
Mm-hmm.
I tie that into consulting with them, business consulting, brand consulting with them. And so I use that as kind of a selling point when we do the consultation. And I basically, kind of go through the benefits of that. And I think it's really helped a lot of my clients
Mm-hmm.
understand their business more.
Yeah. Yeah, I love all of that. And yeah, like you said, figuring out how to present stuff to clients, that is something that's just like nobody teaches you how to do that stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the things that I realized early on too, is that like if I look back at the first presentations, I wouldn't even call it a presentation. It was just a PDF, that I
Mm-hmm.
would send my first clients. And I feel like I just saw, in the early days, I probably just like looked on Pinterest or something, and I saw, how people will share like brand boards or something with like
Mm-hmm.
the
Yes,
logo,
the brand board.
yeah, the logo at the top, and then the color palette and the fonts, and then maybe a mock-up at the bottom. Like I thought, I probably just saw that on Pinterest and thought, oh, this is how people present stuff to their clients. And so like that's what I would send my first clients, with
That's
no
exactly what I did.
explanation. Yeah, with no explanation. And I would just say like, here's the logo. What do you think? And it's like that that just doesn't guide them on
Mm-mm.
how to, first off, what does this logo even mean? Like what does it
Mm-hmm.
represent? What's it conveying to their audience? It doesn't explain any of that.
Mm-mm.
And yeah, I quickly realized that like clients generally don't understand how to give feedback on design stuff. Like they don't,
No, they don't.
they can tell you if they like it or not, but they have a lot of trouble trying to like put into words what isn't working and why it's not working. And it's definitely one of those things that you learn, that our job as the designer isn't just to,
Mm-hmm.
design something that's pretty, but like we have to help the client understand what's working and what's not, why it's not working. And
Mm-hmm.
there's so much extra stuff that goes into the job, I guess, that like
Right.
they don't really tell you.
They don't. We have a feedback script that we specifically use. That has helped
Mhm.
too, because we used to get clients, well, I don't like that. This color's
Yeah.
not working. And one of the things we ask, like, why don't you feel this aligns with your target audience, And they
Yeah.
have no choice but to like say why it doesn't, or,
Hmm.
and I always tell them, oh, keep in mind that, we're designing for your, um, your target audience. However, we will, we're not going to tell you no, you know them more than us.
Mm-hmm.
So um that really stops my client like aback, like, oh wait,
Mm-hmm.
they realize that they're designing for them. And I do have some clients that are building personal brands. And so it does kind of have to be fit with how they are represented to people.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're colorful or bohemian, and that's how they are, and that is part of their brand, their style is part of their brand, totally understand that, you know. But I've had clients like tell me one thing and then completely want something else, and I'm like, this is what you told me your target audience is, and this is what you're telling me you're wanting, and this is why it doesn't work. And
Yeah.
they're like, oh, you're right. I'm like, yeah, you have to kind of pull yourself back and take yourself out and look at it from the
Mm-hmm.
outside. And so
Yeah.
that's always fun. I do like video. I used to type out everything in with my presentations, but I found it better to do Loom videos now with every single presentation. I have
Mm-hmm.
some places in there where I've typed things, but people, it's so much faster for them to look at a video. They are not they're not wanting to read things as much, and it's faster for me to like just get it out in a video, and it's easier for me to express myself that way. I do like writing, but it's just so much easier that way.
Yeah, I do the
Yeah.
same. And it was like once I started doing the screen recording of presentations, like the first client that I tried it with, I just did it. I didn't make a big deal about it or anything. Like, this is a new thing I'm trying. I just did it. And she responded and was like, "Oh my gosh, this is so helpful. This is so much easier. Like, thank you for for like talking through it and everything." And I was just like really surprised at how big of a difference it made in just helping my clients like actually understand everything that I was showing to them. And I even had one client, she loved the screen recording so much that she started doing screen recordings of her feedback rather than
Oh,
just filling out my feedback form. She would, and it helped with some stuff like on websites or something. It just
right.
helped a lot for her to like scroll through and, click on something and specifically show me like what she was
Ew.
talking about. Um,
I think I kind of like that idea, Abby.
yeah, I feel like it sometimes it can get time consuming, especially for websites, because there's so much
Right.
stuff to look at on a website, so some of the videos would get really long.
Yeah,
But
that's the
it
thing. It
was,
might over talk, and yeah.
yeah, but it was really nice to have those. And like, I don't know, it was just kind of funny that she loved it so much, and she was like, "I just downloaded the app that you use for that and I'm going to do it on my own." I'm like, "Okay." um but
Oh,
yeah, I
that's
love
awesome.
all of that because I feel like when you present things in that way, that's just more thoughtful and like,
It's like you're sitting there with them, or they feel like that you're sitting there with them.
yeah, and I think it makes that difference in from the client's perspective. It's the difference between them viewing you as just the designer who's going to create what I tell them to create, and the
Mm-hmm.
designer who's the expert who's going to help me figure out what is actually the best direction. um, I feel like it's
Yeah.
kind of that thing that makes you more of an expert versus
Right.
uh,
It does.
just a pixel pusher.
Right. And that's always my fear. My husband, like, sometimes he'll say, oh, well, my wife does this. And I'm like, I am not a logo designer or just a graphic designer. I'm like, so, because people will be like, oh, can she design this logo for me? And I'm like, no, I'm a brand
Mm-hmm.
strategist. So I don't just do logos. Um, there's no frame of reference for me. Like, if my mom or a best friend of mine say, hey, can you make something really quick for me? That's different.
Yeah.
But like, really working with a business or someone trying to really do something, I can't do it. So like,
Mm-hmm.
it's a waste of their time and mine.
Yeah, I have the same thing happen because so my husband, he's a basketball player, and like within the basketball world, I don't know, there's lots of basketball players who want to start their little like side businesses, like
Right.
uh I don't know, doing like YouTube videos or having like selling t-shirts and stuff like that. So it happens a lot where some of his teammates will be like, oh, your wife does graphic design. Can she like design a flyer or something for
Mm-hmm.
me, for my side business? And thankfully my husband gets it, and he can like try to explain to them, no, she does do graphic design, but like it's a lot. Like
Yeah,
there's a
it's not,
lot to
yeah.
it, and what you're asking for is not something that she's gonna want to do. um
I've had family members say, "Oh, your job's so easy. All you do is like design logos." And I was like, "Yeah, anyway."
it's it's hard to even, you just
It's
like
hard to
can't even
explain to
explain.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the first things I do when I have a consultation is that I ask them, they'll start giving me a brain dump of, what I have them give me a brain dump first. I go over, what we're going to talk about or whatever, and then I have them give me a brain dump. And then I can kind of feel out if they understand what branding is. And if they don't, I ask them, what do they feel like branding is? And, if they give me the wrong answer, I tell them, well, actually, branding is this. And have you ever, and I give them like examples and they like get it right away, And
Mm-hmm.
so I give them McDonald's example. That's my favorite example of disaster. So bad branding right now, and that whole like, I was like, if you think about McDonald's when we were kids, and I said, well, at least when I was a kid, McDonald's represented XYZ. And now what's your first thing when you think of McDonald's? They're like, oh, bad food, ghetto, everything, broken ice cream machine. I said, that's branding, and they're like, oh, yeah. I
Mm-hmm.
said, yeah, visual things can aid your how someone feels, but it's a whole thing. It's not just my logo. And so they
Mm-hmm.
always get that because everybody knows McDonald's.
Yeah. Yeah. You've always got to give examples, I feel like,
Yeah.
to help people understand. Um, yeah.
Yep.
So, back to like juggling business and everything, with being a mom, how has that been
Yeah.
for you? I
Yeah.
mean, I feel like I've talked to a couple of people about this, and all of them are like, well, first off, there's no such thing as balance, and you just basically can't have it. It's unachievable. um,
No.
but yeah, like, do you have any tips or like anything? Because I know I don't have kids yet. We aren't planning on having kids for a few more years, but it already makes me nervous about how I will
Okay.
handle it.
So tips, I'm like, oh gosh, I get help if you need it. That's my first one.
Mm-hmm.
Get help if you need it. It's okay if things look chaotic. Like you have to give yourself grace when you have kids
Mm-hmm.
because I especially, I started the business when I had two small children and one a little bit older child. And they just have all kinds of different personalities. And my son, he's on the autism spectrum. He's high functioning. So most people
Mm-hmm.
don't know he has autism, but um, I especially have to be like super like flexible. And my kids know now that mommy's working, but they don't always listen. So, you know, give yourself grace. That's my biggest tip. Give
Mm-hmm.
yourself grace. It is okay that you ate out 3 nights in a row because client C did not respond back, and all of a sudden they responded and they expect a revision or whatever it may be. Um, Shit happens, and you just have to roll with it and let and not be so hard on yourself. Two
Mm-hmm.
is make sure your clients understand that, build it into your contract that things may vary. This timeline may
Mm-hmm.
vary.
Yeah.
And when I do consultations, I let people know I have kids. I have a child on the autism spectrum, blah, 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 so that they know, hey, if I'm a couple of days behind, I will let you know and we will, adjust the timeline as needed. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so that those are my two biggest tips,
Yeah.
as far as the mom
Yeah.
goes, because I don't have like a put your kids to bed at 8 p.m. because they will do. No, every kid's different. They don't come with
Mm-hmm.
manuals. They are horrible sometimes, and that's just how it is. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really good too, to just kind of try to be a little transparent about, sometimes stuff happens, and clients can hopefully understand. And I obviously this isn't the same because I don't have kids, but whenever our lifestyle can be kind of hectic at times. Whenever we have to move for my husband's
mm-hmm.
job, it can happen very quickly, and so it's an awkward thing for me to handle with project timelines and clients, and I just kind of have to be honest with them. Usually
Yep.
we know around the time in the year that we'll be moving, but we never have an exact date until maybe like a week ahead of time or something. And
Oh,
so
wow.
I just have to tell my clients, hey, like whenever we're first scheduling the project, I just have to be like, hey, we're probably going to move across the world in June, but I don't know what day, and I don't know I don't know when I'll know what day, and I don't
Wow.
know how much time I'll have to take off, probably a week or two. Um, and I just kind of have to tell them, like, I'll tell you when I know, and we'll adjust. And I purposefully put, some extra time in my timelines. Like if I think that's going to happen, I'll just go ahead and tack on an extra week or two to the project timeline just in case.
Yes,
And
that is a big thing, adding on more time. I've struggled
mm-hmm,
with that. Like I said, I
yeah,
struggle with project management. I would always tell myself I can get done in this time, and I always underestimate time. I've started overestimating time. It has helped.
mm-hmm, yeah,
But I have to be like not procrastinate. I wouldn't say I'm like over procrastinator, but I, designers, sometimes I think that we get in a creative funk too, and then we wait to the last minute.
mm-hmm,
Or at least I do. I get anxiety and I'm like, there's something going
yeah,
on with our life. And um,
yeah.
yeah, that's crazy that you have to be. So I knew that, I mean, I've been following you. I didn't know it was such a short, they give you such short notice. I mean, wow.
It's crazy. There now it's been a little bit better uh with COVID, like this past summer. That was kind of crazy because we thought we would be going home, and then all the flights were canceled, and then we didn't know if we'd get to go home at all. So that was, a whole different situation. But yeah, there have been times where um, teams reach out to my husband and they send a contract, he signs it, and then they say, okay, we've booked your flight, in a week you're going to come here. And like
Wow.
everything can just be very very rushed, but keeps us on our toes. But
You're
yeah,
getting
so
to
that
travel the world. That's the thing I miss about the military is traveling.
yeah,
I've been
yeah.
to a lot of different countries in Europe, and I miss that
Mm-hmm.
definitely. It's a lot more for me, a lot more fun when I didn't have kids. But I what I found out too is that if you tell clients that you're going to be late ahead of time and keep them updated, they are way more nice if things don't
Mm-hmm.
go. I know that is like obvious, but sometimes I get to where I think I'm going to complete something, even though in the back of my mind, I know there's this like doubt or, I kind of know that I probably, I will still try. And then I'm like, oh shoot, I'm gonna be late. I'm working at getting better at, telling clients, I may be a couple of days late on this. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, even after all these years, I still have those little like things that are working on. And um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, and I feel like in my experience, especially with like, there have been times where all of a sudden we've had to pack up and move or something, crazy happen. And then all of a sudden I have to tell clients, I'm sorry, I have to stop working. We're dealing with all of this. Usually I feel like they're pretty understanding, which is, of course, great. um,
they love your work. I mean, your work is beautiful. I'm
oh,
so
thank you.
inspired by you. And I actually bought your templates, and I found those super helpful because I had a brand guidelines that I've been using for years, and I just didn't like it anymore. And then I was like looking for inspiration on how to redo ours, and then I saw yours, and I was like, bingo! It just fit I everything that I just loved it. So, thank you for creating those.
Oh no, I'm glad that they helped. Yeah, that was like something that I never thought that I would sell something like that, sell anything like that. But um, yeah, like we talked about earlier, that's just like stuff that they never show you how to do correctly. And I feel like even with even if you like worked in the agency world or something, like typically you would have a project manager or somebody else who like handles that type of stuff, like presenting stuff to clients. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, that's why I wanted to create something. I mean, it took a while for me to figure out like what made sense to include in that type of stuff, but yeah.
Do
Uh,
you find that clients, after you give them the right guideline, one thing I notice clients don't get is the typography with their social media. It like kills me. It like breaks my heart. And I'm like,
yeah.
I think I like die inside a little bit when I see like that. And I always want to like send them an email and say, hey, I noticed that you didn't use the right font and it wasn't in all caps. And but I'm like, no, calm down. So I'm trying to think of a way now to like put that in the brand guidelines somehow. Like these are the
Mm-hmm.
fonts that you are supposed to be using. Do not use
Mm-hmm.
20 different fonts. Like it says it in there, but like in a way that like, I don't know. Has that been your
Yeah.
experience?
Yeah, no, I've definitely seen like some it's it varies. It's like some clients get it and
Right.
some clients just don't. And yeah, I don't know. Like I try now in like my notes whenever I say, these are your brand fonts and stuff, I'll try to give them some more specific rules like this font should always be in all caps. It should, these headlines or something should be significantly larger than your paragraph text or something,
Ooh,
like that. I try to give them some more detailed directions, but it is hard. I mean, there's only so much you can do. I feel like
right.
some people are just gonna,
Do what I want to do. I think
yeah.
I'm going to try to like be a little more specific with my wording in that way and place more emphasis, like highlight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Yeah, and so last question. If you had one piece of advice to give to young freelancers or creatives, what would it be? And I know that that's kind of a hard question. That's
Oh
very
man.
broad, but yeah, if there was one thing.
Well, because I haven't touched on this, I know I had said that project management and great customer service is like super, super important. I would say one of those two things, but I already mentioned that. The thing that I really think is so important that, a lot of designers, freelancers do when they first start their business, I think it's just what everyone does, is not to charge hourly
Mm,
and have a contract.
yes,
Is that too? Sorry.
yes. No, that's fine. They're
Um,
both equally
yeah.
important. So,
I'm like, oh, anytime I
yeah.
see other people telling designers to charge hourly, I'm like, oh God. Because I
Mm-hmm.
worked as a contractor for another agency and on an hourly basis, and it was just so icky. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I feel like you devalue what you do in that way and you limit your earning potential. So,
Yeah, it's just
um,
not fair.
it's
It's
not fair.
rarely
And
ever fair.
no, and you're basically communicating to the client you can do things faster, and sometimes
Mhm.
that's not the case. And so the value-based pricing is so I loved, DBM, and I was kind of already doing that, but the way that she um just the sales portion of that and everything like that really helped me. And
Mhm.
contracts that just like anytime I hear a designer say they aren't using contracts, I can't even, my mind, like I like inside internally, I'm dying. So, um, yeah,
Yeah.
because people, if you give them an inch, they will take a mile. Not saying, I've had some really great clients, but you have to establish those guidelines ahead of time and make sure they understand it. And there will be people who don't understand it or just want to sign the contract to start the project. You just never know. You can try to fill people out in a meeting, or a consultation, but you just never know. And you have to protect yourself. You have to. And a lot of these designers are DBAs when they first start out, or they haven't established a business entity, so they are liable for everything. And so it's just so important. I can't, and it's free. You can make a contract for free. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. So, and there are tons of like contract templates out there. Obviously, you want to consult a lawyer if possible, but putting things, if you have a contract, putting it in plain English is the best way to go. I see some of these free contracts have they're in legalese, and they're very you can't, the average person wouldn't understand it, and you probably don't understand it as well, but it looks good. So I caution designers not to use those ones starting out. Use ones that are in basic English so that both parties understand. And one more tip about the contract is certain areas of your contract, if you are hesitant about them, like as far as timeline, if you have for instance, have you might have to pick up and move at any time. In your contract, you can make them initial it, and so that they see that area in addition to signing at the bottom, so that they read it, or at least you can say, hey, you initialed this. So those are my tips. And I know that was like 2 or 3 tips, but
no, that's okay. No, those are all good. I feel like contracts, it's such a weird thing. And again, I feel like it stems from, that's not something that they really talk about if you're in school. And of course, if you're self-taught, nobody's really talking about that either. But it's just like, I know whenever I first started, I knew I needed I probably did maybe like one or 2 projects without a contract. And I felt like I was just scared because I didn't know what should even go in a contract. So I was like, how am I supposed to put a contract together? I don't even know what I'm supposed to put in it. But and so I found some like templates and stuff to use, and have eventually gotten better templates, and of course added. And I feel like it's important that you can add anything you want into your contract too. I feel like that's something that I didn't really think about or realize early on, but you can add anything you want into it, and you kind of should. I feel like everyone's contracts are constantly changing, and you also kind of assume that awkward, bad situations aren't going to happen, but you never know. I know designers who have had, really sticky situations with clients where if they didn't have a contract, who knows what they would have had to do, as far as paying money or something like that. So you just gotta be protected.
Protect yourself. You have to protect yourself. And I like what you said about adding things to it. I think I don't even know how I knew I needed a contract. I don't remember that far back. I might have just designed how to be a freelance designer, or how to start a design business or something like that. And adding to it is so. I think when you first started, you don't know that you can add it to. You think it has to look all legally and all that stuff. No, a contract is a very general idea, and it's a as far as I were written understanding between 2 parties, and so it doesn't have to, have herein and whitherto or whatever. So to make it work. And
all right, well, thank you so much for everything, all of your wisdom, and yeah, I'm so excited for people to listen to this and just um, learn all about how you've grown your business and all of the stuff that you've learned along the way. So thank you so much for doing this. And yeah, in the blog post, I will share links for people to follow you and check out your work and everything. And
Thank you so
yeah,
much. It's been great speaking with you.
yeah.